being in the movies and stuff is people approach you and say, I have an idea for a movie, or a cool line, what you should say in the movie. Does that get annoying?
Yeah, that's pretty annoying.
I think it'd be cool, like in a movie, if you were like in a two-piece bikini and you're getting ready to make out with a guy, like a love scene, and you undo your bikini in the back and you're like, there's something I've been meaning to get off my chest. Because you get the double meaning, like emotionally.
Yeah, I understand.
Do you wear bikinis?
Could we talk about the next thing?
Okay. You shaved your head for V for Vendetta. Mm-hmm. Did you also shave your V for vagina?
Pass.
Three Films and a Podcast has no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode. All film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders and is used solely with the intent of film criticism, commentary, and education under fair use law. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final Partners Pick episode of Three Films and a Podcast. My name is Ben Lawhorn. I'm here in Salt Lake. I'm joined by Matt Weiler, as always, and Tyler Beck, who's up in Portland. And we have another special guest today, calling in all the way from the kitchen. We have my better half, Ashley Hutchins. Hello, Ashley. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Ashley.
Hello, good evening.
The latest watch party MVP.
Just the crowning
in the
champ.
flesh.
That's how she wakes up every morning. She's like, "Oh, it's MVP day for me." I'm like, "Okay, we got to have another watch party because we got to end this." So,
yeah.
But I thought it'd be great to have Ashley on because the partner pick round was actually her idea. I thought it'd be fun to hear from her and get her thoughts on the movie and everything. So I'm super happy that she agreed to join us. You went with a Natalie Portman movie, fairly recent, one called Vox Lux. Which we have now all watched. Matt, would you mind kind of giving us a rundown of what the movie's about and maybe kind of go into your thoughts on it, your review?
Director and writer Brady Corbet, starring Natalie Portman and the original Jude Law. The better Jude Law, in my opinion.
The one true Jude Law.
Yeah.
The most attractive
The one
J-Law.
true.
That's mean. I like Jennifer Lawrence.
I mean, it's not meant to be any ill will towards Jennifer
Fair
Lawrence.
enough.
It's just trying to speak the truth.
Anyone that's seen The Talented Mr. Ripley would agree.
And I haven't, so.
Wouldn't be me. So.
Wow. Okay. Is this a movie podcast?
No. This is a movie exploration podcast. The whole point of this thing was so we could watch more new stuff.
That's true.
We are on brand here.
Let us all one day watch Talented Mr. Ripley.
Well, if you're a patron, you can make it happen.
That's true.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. So the movie starts off, essentially the movie's about a pop star, just to put it very generally.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie opens with a school shooting, which kind of sparks something in a young Celeste. Celeste then becomes a budding star, and it's broken up into three different acts. The first act is essentially her rising to stardom.
Mm-hmm.
The second act is Natalie Portman mid-career, already. Actually, it's probably more post-stardom, right? Because I guess she's on her like rebirth tour.
Yeah.
So she's already peaked, and it kind of explores her in her adulthood as a parent, and it also explores the fact that there's been another tragedy, not a school shooting, but another shooting in Europe with people dressed up as her from one of her music videos.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of plays off of this idea that this school shooting kind of created her, and then she's influencing another shooting elsewhere in the world, and kind of how that impacts her during this specific tour. And then the third act is just sort of her performance. And it breaks into her relationships as a performer, like throughout her career. That would be my, I guess, not my shorthand or longhand, but my mid hand.
Perfect explanation of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, how do you describe this movie, though? you know, like you kind of have to do it that way and just plot it out point by point, because it almost feels like a bunch of different movies all in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read your Letterboxd review, Matt, and it echoed a lot of my sentiments. I don't know if you wanted to dig into that or how you wanted to give your review, but I liked your thoughts on it quite a bit. And I haven't written mine yet, but you seem to echo a lot of what I would say.
So I guess like as I was watching it, I just realized that I'm not the biggest fan of this subgenre in like music movies that are about artists, where the artist essentially it shows that they're not a great person behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that we kind of generally understand. Like fame isn't all it's cracked up to be. These people get just so tired of the taxing culture of being famous. And so they develop bad habits. They develop bad personality traits. They're not there or around for their family members. And so I guess I'm not as interested in that aspect of things. I know that that's an element of this movie. That's not really like the theme of this movie. But I just pointed out in my letterbox that I'm not the biggest fan of that genre. We see it a lot. I think there's a Meryl Streep one recently where she's like a retired rocker.
Oh yeah. What was that one called? Yeah.
Ricky and the
And
Flash.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we see it elsewhere. But I really liked Willem Dafoe's narration.
Yeah.
What's interesting is when it pulls in that classical music and Willem Dafoe's narration, it almost felt like a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the advice of a producer, Celeste would change the lyric from I to we, and shortly thereafter the entire country fell in step with her sentiment. It was not her grief, it was theirs. No longer merely her experience, they reclaimed it as their own.
I don't know. It's a good transition, and I actually really liked it when it came up because I felt like it happened at just the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the shots that I really liked throughout the movie. Well, first of all, I thought it was interesting the way they used New York City. They used like this ominous music with these like overpowering buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some of those shots were interesting.
Not to cut you off too much, but I thought they did that with anytime they introduced a new location, like they did that with Los Angeles too. It had like it showed like, you know, that wide aerial view, and like the ground looked like it was like crawling, you know, it was like, it's like this moving, living, breathing, dark, you know, creature. And then they had this like super heavy, like almost black metal playing over it. And I thought that was interesting because I noticed the same thing like you did about how they introduced New York. And they really show these settings as these ominous, sort of dangerous, you know, beings almost.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And I liked a lot of the shots they had. Unfortunately, one of my favorite shots was like one of my least favorite parts of the movie, and that's just like the beach shooting.
Yeah.
I felt like that shot was like so cool, and then it's just unfortunate the subject matter of it.
Yeah.
But another thing that I really liked about it was just like the drama of it. I can handle heavy drama. I like heavy drama, but I am also a sucker for like the sweetness offset. Like when I have heavy drama, I like enough sweetness. And that sweetness came in the form of Ellie for the most part in this movie. I didn't feel like there was enough of it to offset some of like the more like cruder, darker aspects of this movie. But I did enjoy that part. And then I could always sing praises for Jude Law. I have to admit, I was a little hard on Natalie Portman's accent in this. I felt very judgy throughout it.
Do you actually believe the weird shit you said up there?
They wanted a show. I gave them a show.
All right, this place is swarming with press. Can I kindly ask you two to keep your mouths shut until we're finished?
Fine by me.
Let me handle it. Go smoke a cigarette or something.
Like, as I was watching and listening to it, I was probably very unfair towards it. Like, this is too much.
I couldn't figure out where they were supposed to be from the whole time. I was like, is this supposed to be Boston or what? Like where are they supposed to be from?
Yeah, I feel like there was some fluctuation there. One thing I did think they did well, though, was matching both actors' voices.
Yeah.
From the first and like that, it was consistent. However, you know, you want to label it, you know, poorly executed or whatever, but it was consistent throughout, which I thought was a cool touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I was realizing, like, I looked up where Natalie Portman was from, and she was from like that area. Like, she's from New York and Connecticut. Like, that's where she spent most of her life. So who am I to decide whether her accent was good or not?
Fair.
So authentic,
So-
it sounds fake.
Yeah, right. So maybe, yeah. So I realized that after the fact, I'm like, maybe I'm just an idiot, and there's plenty of people that sound exactly like that, and she's actually great, and that's maybe how she speaks. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I think that's an accurate read because her accent seemed to get thicker as she got older. Like the Staten Island accent was not present in the younger version, right?
Yeah. I didn't notice it. I mean, it
No.
took me a while to realize. I'm like, wait, is she speaking with an accent? Because, like, quite frankly, it took me a while to wrap my head around what was even happening in the first place. So, like, keying in on accent was, like, not my priority number one as this movie played itself out.
Yeah. It felt like Natalie Portman talking, but then, yeah, once we got to Natalie Portman, it was still her, but then kind of threw in more of the accent or whatever, the
sure.
Staten Island accent.
I went into so I had the unique experience for this movie to not know anything about it. Like, when it was nominated, I was like, I've never even heard of this. And so I was like, okay, I'm purposely not going to look this up at all. I'm just going to, like, wait until it's time to watch it. And so I didn't know that Natalie Portman was in it until I looked it up on Just Watch to see where it was streaming. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know anything about it until I read the byline when I clicked on it on Hulu. And, like, this thing turned into not at all what I was expecting. Like, I saw that she was, like, a pop singer, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's like a music thing. And then I'm like, wait, is this, like, a school shooting movie? Is this like what? It just kept flipping on its head, which, like, you know, a lot of times I enjoy, but this time around, I could never get a feel for, like, what am I supposed to be getting out of any of this? You know what I mean? Like, it was, I don't know. It was hard for me to wrap my head around. And talking about Natalie Portman, it was weird because, like, I love Natalie Portman, and I think she's insanely talented. She's one of my favorite actresses. And I was talking to Alex. I'm like, she is absolutely, like, going in on this role. Like, she's giving it everything she's got, and she's doing it well. I'm just like, I just don't know if I like it. You know, like, I just don't know if this character either. Maybe, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if I care about this, you know, like, she's doing awesome, but, like, the character, frankly, kind of sucks. Like, then I felt bad about that because I think about, like, you know, this character as a real person, how she got to where she is, and it just like, my head kept, like, flipping over and over and over. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like, who am I to say, like, what you would turn out as if you went from watching your entire class get shot up to being, like, you know, Lady Gaga or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was honestly, it's really hard to wrap my head around it because, like, the experience that she has is so far removed from, like, what I would consider my experience or, like, a normal experience. It's like, I don't have any bearing to, like, fully understand what this person's going through. Like, I can understand it, and I guess it can excuse a lot of the way that she's acting, but, like, I don't know. It was hard for me. And then I like Sia a lot. I thought it was really cool when I saw her name on the opening credits. For some reason, they do credits at the beginning of the movie, which I was curious about that. We can talk about that in a minute. But I feel like a thing that hurt this movie, in my opinion, was the music, because in a movie like this, I feel like, you know, the music has to be, you have to buy that the music is good enough to put them in the position they're in. Yeah. And I just didn't buy it from this one. Like, the very first song that she sings in the church had me, like, almost awestruck. I was like, okay, this is great. Like, you can tell Sia's touch on it. It was performed well. The setting was great. The moment itself was great. And then after that, it was like, I could never tell. I'm like, are these supposed to be hits, or are they supposed to, is she supposed to be failing? I don't know. And even up till the very end, it was just like, I'm not buying it. And, like, Natalie's performance at the end, like, I think she's great, but I just couldn't buy that she was supposed to be this like worldwide pop star. I don't know.
For sure.
I haven't written out my thoughts yet, obviously, as I ramble through this, but yeah, this one was a weird one for me. I really did enjoy it, but I don't know if I liked it. It's kind of weird to say. Like, it just had my head flipping all around. And I read your review too, Ben, and it sounds like you kind of had the same sort of thoughts.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I'll do another one because we actually just rewatched it. But on my first watch, I just put that, like, I wanted a ton more of the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I loved that development of her, coming into fame and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was great. And I wanted some more of the middle section, essentially the last half. I liked that. And then I just wanted like none of the performance. I wanted none of the show because it was just like, and I would be a million times worse, but it's just like when you have these close-ups of Natalie Portman, like supposed to be Lady Gaga or whoever, it's like, that's a whole persona that you really have to take on that I don't know how well you can do as an actor, That's just like, that's who they are. That's their person, So it was really rough for me. But I will say that on the second watch, I liked it so much more than I did the first time. And I enjoyed it the first time. I gave it 3 stars. I'm like, I had a good time with this. And then, speaking of the Willem Dafoe voiceover, like once that came in at the very end, I was like, oh, all right, that makes more sense. So like now when I could go back and watch it, like for some reason just kind of clicked a little bit more for me and I liked it. But I think it's also interesting that's the way it's set up. The first half of the movie is over months, if not years, where we see this person develop and become someone. And then once we finally see Natalie Portman, like 54 minutes into the movie, we basically are just like get one day in the life of, and that's it. So like it's really trimmed down. And then the very last half is kind of happening in real time where it's like, cool, here's the last 15 minutes. This is the 15 minutes of this person's life. So I thought that was like an interesting storytelling technique, just like so many times I think we get the middle part is the long part of the movie. It's like, oh yeah, they were a kid and whatever. And then they got a piano and then here we're going to learn all this stuff. But it's like we spent half the movie of them just like developing into who they are. And then suddenly it's whatever, like 14 years later. And she's like at the height of her fame, kind of having a meltdown. And we're going to spend a day with her and see what this is like. So for some reason, it played a lot better for me the second time. Jude Law, like you said, is always great. He played his role really well because like he was kind of a slime ball, but you also still liked him, which I feel is like kind of difficult to pull off, But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to hear Ashley's thoughts like on the rewatch. Like, did it play for you better? What were your thoughts overall on this pick? Like, I think we all went into this blind, and I'm kind of curious what your thoughts were after we watched it. Like, oh yeah, this is a great pick, or like I maybe should have done like something else. I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts.
And also, I was curious, had you seen this before you picked it, or was this?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'd never seen it, but I'd wanted to. I'd seen the trailer and I was obsessed. Like, I watched it at least 5 times. And because the trailer I think is incredible. I don't know if you guys watched it. I know you said you went into it blind, Fuzz. But like the trailer is incredible. And the movie, it didn't really live up to it for me. I agree with Ben. The second watch, it was a lot better because we kind of knew the story and knew it. Like, it's the first time I was bored. Like, it just felt so slow.
Yeah.
And the second time I kind of knew what was going on. So I was kind of watching for the subtleties more.
Yeah, I think that's something that I need to do. I just don't know if I want to. Because like something like you just keyed in on it, talking about the subtleties. Like, I was so just like playing from behind, trying to figure out what am I even supposed to be watching, or what am I what am I watching here, that I think I missed out on a lot of the like even the Willem Dafoe stuff. I could hear the rich timbre of his voice and his cool delivery, but I'm like, I couldn't tell you one word he said. And so I'm curious what you picked up like the second time through with those subtleties.
I think the Willem Dafoe added like a lot of warmth to it.
Yeah.
Like just the tone of it, and the color is kind of like blue and gray. And so I thought he brought a lot of warmth to it, and I'm glad that he was a part of it. Although, do you guys remember that weird little history lesson he did on like Swiss pop music? It was just so weird. It's like just thrown in there.
Like I said, I don't remember a single word he said, but I just remember his voice bouncing around in my brain.
In the 1940s, church leaders and cultural conservatives rallied together around a solemn mission: to safeguard the country's youth against the degenerate music that was being piped in from America. To combat this threat, municipal schools of music spread across the country, offering morally uplifting instruction in classical music. One thing would eventually lead to another.
It reminded me of, weirdly, when you were talking about how you didn't buy Natalie Portman, I think a lot of it is like the aesthetic of it and the like cosmetic stuff. It's like people on House Hunters, they're like, oh, I don't like this house, the wallpaper is ugly. And it's like, well, you can change that. So I think it's like that, where like the bones of it I think are really good, but some of the like the metallic hair and the weird costumes and the bad dancers and sort of the over commercialized gross stuff like made it unbelievable.
Yeah, and like especially that end performance, I was trying to compare it to like what was that Beyonce movie that came out last year that showed her
Homecoming.
at Coachella? Yeah, and like a truly well done like concert film. And I was like, I'm like, this guy's obviously never seen one or done one, or no one told him how to do one. Because Natalie Portman, I mean, we're going to talk about Black Swan, I'm sure, here fairly soon. And I mean, she's obviously can dance. She can obviously move. She's obviously, I mean, she went to, I can't remember the name of the school, but she went to a performance arts school. Like, she's obviously danced before, but she looked like she didn't look like a pop sensation. I just couldn't buy it. And so, like you're saying, like the aesthetic choices, like the way that they shot that concert, I'm like, I can see way too much. Like, this needs to be like way more, this needs to be faster and more dynamic and needs to be moving a lot more. Like, we need to fake this one a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was stylized totally wrong. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. You're totally right. I was honestly just going to echo what Fuzz said earlier, where I think if you go into completely blind, you can be wondering, like, is this supposed to be a hit song, or are we making fun of this? Because I can't tell.
Yeah, that
and
first
I think that's
song,
like a bad aspect. You know, it's like, wait, am I supposed to enjoy this, or is she failing? Like, I don't know what this is.
Like her first time in the studio, that first single she makes when she's a kid, when she first makes it big, I'm like, oh, I thought this was going to be where she fails and then she finally she finds success later in life. So when I found out that she was somehow successful after that song, I was like, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
That song wasn't terrible, but you can tell, like, Sia was like, yeah, I'll give you some of my C tracks. You know, like, I'll give you one good song and then I'll give you
I'm going to give you songs my cousin wrote.
Yeah, like, it just, I thought it was so strange.
This is crazy because we just watched the Bee Gees doc last night, and the songs that they wrote for Saturday Night Fever, I'm like, this is not Saturday Night Fever level. I mean, nothing was, you know.
Yeah, or like, did you guys
insane, but it's just like, she was just kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to like criticize her, but maybe kind of mailing it in, you know. It's like, oh, here's stuff I've turned down, but, you know, it'll have my, you know, it'll be in my key or whatever, so it'll sound like me. I don't know.
It definitely had like the way she writes her lyrics and the way she kind of turns the phrase definitely sounded a lot like Sia, but it was definitely like she wrote it on the plane. Like, she had to turn something in. That's what she came up with. And, you know, it's a hell of a lot better than I could do, but I just, you know, couldn't buy it.
Matt, I'd be kind of curious to hear what you thought. I don't know if you saw the trailer before going into it, but like, as you watched the movie, like what were you expecting and what did you get? Was there anything you liked about it? Do you have any favorite parts of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to like about it. And I think just like a lot of the movies that we've covered, even when they don't fall very well with us, it's always worth watching and experiencing just to get a new, unique story. Because I certainly haven't heard, you know, a story like this. But I didn't see any trailer beforehand. I knew very little about it. I remember when it came out, and that was the extent of my knowledge on it. I think when I was reading the summary before I clicked into watching it, I was expecting something maybe a little more musical, a little more mockumentary style ordeal. Also, and I had the bar set higher as well. Like, we've seen a lot of great mockumentaries, Josie and the Pussycats, the Christopher Guest movies, you know, have really awesome fake original songs. And there's even one that came out this year that's making fun of Eurovision. Will Ferrell's Eurovision. And they kind of, like, in their way, have like these, they're funny because they're accurate, but also just like totally bananas. But there's so much effort to go into it that, like, it's a believable song. Like, I could see why in this universe this is a hit. And I feel like I felt similarly. Like, I was all in the church scene. And I loved that her sister Ellie joins her. And I think, if I remember right, they harmonized there for a second. I was like, yes, this is going to be awesome. And I just felt like as it progressed, we just didn't get to that level ever again.
Right.
I feel like that's where it got. But like I said, like, I cling to like the sweeter sides of drama. And so the sister relationship was what really, that was my takeaway. Just the unconditional love, and in the end, and the reveal that, like, there was some type of dark covenant with the devil to you know, be famous in that moment. Like, to look at like what her sister even still did and stood by her and did everything for her was pretty awesome. I thought.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, what a strange little twist. Like, at the very end, we realize where it's revealed she sold her soul to the devil. It's like...
Shortly after her classmate pulled the trigger and sent her to the place between life and death, a place that she was only able to describe to Eleanor as a rush of color. She had met the devil and made a deal with him in exchange for her life. He whispered her melodies, and she returned with a mission to bring great change to the next century.
Like, what the fuck is this movie? Like, can't we just have one thing? Like, does the whole time have to be like topsy-turvy? I don't know.
I would have liked to have seen the devil cameo with Dave Grohl playing the devil.
I was going to say, like, Tenacious D, just like, have him come out.
Well, speaking of what we did and didn't get to see, I'll answer your question and give you my favorite part here in a minute. But one thing I wanted to talk about, and I feel like this is as good a place as any, is like, did we need to see the shooting scenes? Like, do we think that was necessary? Like, I just don't need to see it. Like, you know, I'm not like, I think we've talked about, I'm getting a little softer on violence as I get older. And it's just like, we know what a school shooting is. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell me that she was part of this horrible tragedy. Like, it could have just picked up from the ambulances going to the hospital and having her, you know what I mean? Like, you could have like news B-roll playing and show her with her bandages in the ambulance. I'm just like, I just don't think we needed to see it. And I think, like, that's one of the reasons I was having a hard time with the movie, because, like, I feel like we get the exact same movie, honestly, with how the rest of it played out, with or without those scenes. Both the one on the beach and the original shooting. Like, I know there's a little bit, you get to see a little bit of Celeste's character as she deals with that situation in the moment, the way she deals with the shooter and the way that she handles that moment is sort of like revealing about her character throughout the rest of the movie. But I'm just like, I don't think it was necessary. I was curious to see if you guys felt the same way or had that thought at all, or I don't know, Ashley, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I do have some thoughts. In between the first and second watch, I read a couple interviews with the director, and he's, you know, and Matt touched on it a little bit earlier about how the school shooting kind of created her and catapulted her into like pop culture. And then from there, she kind of inspired this other shooting because they wore the masks. And she even talks about it in the press conference, sort of how what they have in common is like they both want to be famous, want to be infamous, iconic. They want to be like in the spotlight. And I think it was watching it a second time, I thought it was interesting when the shooter said his name. Like, he said it numerous times. Like, I'm, what was it, Carter Active or something.
I said, will we?
Excuse me?
Yes.
My name is Cullen Active.
What?
My name is Cullen Active.
Yes. Cullen, I know.
And so, like, he said it multiple times, and then just, like, the notoriety of it, and just kind of, like, willing to do anything to stay sort of in that spotlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was... yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't...
I just, even still, sometimes you don't need to be shown. So, you know, sometimes it's okay to just be told something. Like, I'm going to buy it. Or, like, I don't...
Yeah.
Like, I did think the scene was, for as much of a bummer as it was to watch, like, it was well done. Like, it seemed real. Like, it seemed like that's probably how it would go down. And unfortunately, we had enough real life experiences that I'm sure they could have got some sort of consultation on what it would be like at that moment. But
yeah, for sure.
I don't know, man. I just, maybe I'm getting too soft in my old age. But in a movie that, like, Ashley, you struggled with the pace of it, it sounds like the first time, like, that's, that would have cut out about, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of the movie that, you know, maybe it would have made it a little more palatable.
The reason I liked it, I mean, it's gruesome and all that kind of stuff. And I agree. Maybe you could show it differently. Like, maybe you have the camera on the shooter while he's shooting, like facing him, so you don't see the damage that he does. Like, you could probably show it a different way, but at the same time, you know how it like threw me off that we were on the teacher the whole time. I'm like, oh, she's going to get shot without a doubt. And then she doesn't until we see him. But then they pull that trick with Celeste. You know, she's like, I'll stay here and pray with you. And she turns to her friend. She's like, no, it's fine. And then boom, just out of nowhere, it's like, oh shit. Like, that was the jump I was expecting the first time. And we got it this time. This is kind of nuts. Like, so for me, that stuff worked. But I agree with you. I feel like you could probably show it a different way. It didn't bother me as much. I felt like it really just like punched home how serious it was. What I did like about that sequence, though, that I thought was very interesting is when we learn that she's made the deal with the devil, you know, at the very end, and then you go back and rewatch it and it's like, oh, like, yeah, she got shot through the neck. Like, an artery must have been hit. She should be dead. And they kind of tell us that she is because, like, we see the credits play during the ride to the hospital. Right. Which is like the end of something.
Yeah, I was going to mention that earlier, and I
thought that was really interesting because the first time I watched it, I didn't get it. I was like, oh, this is just like some weird pretentious move this guy's doing. Like, I want to show my credits at the beginning.
It's I'm like, a filmmaker.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my god.
My name's not Brady Corbett, it's Corbet.
It's Corbet.
Shout out Brady Corbet. You're welcome on the pod anytime.
And that's how I felt the first time.
Like and subscribe.
Yes, please like and subscribe. We'll send you a mug. But you know, when the credits played the first time, I was like, oh my god, dude, this is just like too much. Like, all right, we get it, this is a different movie, whatever. But then watching the second time, realizing like, oh, she actually did probably die in that van, or in the, you know, the ambulance on the way to the hospital. It's like, oh, the credits make a little more sense now. Like, that was kind of the end for her. But then she comes back, you know. So I thought, all right, okay, that was all right. I get it.
Yeah, like, I did like that little trick.
I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't know. The Defoe voiceover really worked for me, and yeah, I was kind of hung up on that too the first time. It's like, man, voiceover is so tricky to make work in a movie, but I think they did it. Maybe it helped that it was Willem Dafoe. I'm not sure, but like I think it worked well for this movie, kind of letting us know, you know, it's always a reveal. It's literally just exposition, the voiceover, but it's like, yo, she didn't know that her daughter had sex last night, you know, and so we don't see that. We just hear from the voiceover, and then we cut to her confronting her sister, like, oh, she's taking a pregnancy test because of this. It's like, oh, that's right. We heard that in the voiceover. We didn't see them talk about it at all, you know, but I don't know. We got to hear that. So interesting decisions, I think, were made, but I agree with you. Like, maybe we can show it a different way. I still think we need to see it at some, you know, somehow. Like, I don't necessarily want it all to be exposition. Like, news reporters and then voiceover and all this. Like, I think I want to be there for some of it. So it worked for me, but I do hear you, you know, there's like, it is very gruesome and it's too real, you know, which is like unfortunate to say. It's like, yeah, this is probably what it looks like because we've heard about it so much. So.
And along the exposition lines, like when they're talking about how she went on like a 3-day bender drinking house cleaners, like across state lines, she drank so much like random household shit that she went blind in one eye, and then she was driving a car and hit someone. Like, that's what I want to see. Like, don't just tell me about that. Like, I want to see that. That's nuts.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the things they chose to show in this movie baffle me, but
yeah,
I'm no Brady Corbet, so what do I know?
I'm a big softie too, and I don't care for like those type of scenes either, but I guess just from like a purely artistic and aesthetic point of view, like what is he trying to make the audience feel in that moment? And sometimes that feeling doesn't happen unless you're there.
True.
And you see it, and then then you can kind of empathize with Celeste being in the classroom with her when it happens. You can kind of see the juxtaposition of it and witness it, I guess, from the beach.
Yeah.
But to the point of what Ashley mentioned, and I also sort of read that. I don't know if I read it in like some of the reviews or what, but like that comparison that a shooting created her and then she's like inspiring new shootings. That's not a connection that I made on my own. And so if that was the intent of Brady Corbet, I maybe would have found a way to communicate that a little better. And it doesn't have to be on the nose. Like, it doesn't have to be a headline saying shooting, like rising star comes out of shooting. And then like another newspaper article that says shooting or pop star inspiring shootings across the globe. But I do feel like there could have been some devices used to maybe illustrate that better, or maybe it's just as subtle as you wanted it to be. But unless I was in like a high school humanities class dissecting this all semester, I don't think I would have come to that conclusion.
Which is totally fair. I mean, they have the mask on, but yeah, my first, watch was like, oh, that must have just been like a thing they had available. Maybe it's just like
did they
some overstock of merch from her tour? And like, oh, can they use this? I didn't think about like, oh, they are doing a mass shooting because she was from a mass shooting. Like, oh, that totally makes sense. I just thought it was more like, oh, it's super weird coincidence that those are the masks that they're wearing.
But, did they blast her music or anything? Like, was that the only connection?
Maybe, would have worked like even more, if they had been doing that while wearing her mask. Like, and maybe it's just like, I'm dumb. And it's like, I just need you to hit me over the head with it. But it's just like, I just thought it was more like, oh, they just must have had access to those. There's nothing else behind those masks. But
yeah. And I still, even right now, I'm like, oh, wait, she was the reason for the shooting, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I always took it as like these guys were going to do some sort of terrorist act, and they just kind of put the pieces together. Not necessarily that she inspired it, but they were like, "Oh, wouldn't this be funny? Almost like we can use her art and with her background to do a shooting." I mean, I still don't know.
Like in The Dark Knight, did they interview the clown whose mask the Joker's goons were wearing? To see if he had anything to do with
the terrorists who love an Easter egg. Like, oh, maybe people who live will know that we're doing this because of Celeste. It's like, okay, yeah, it's maybe a little too far, but at the same time, that like I agree with Matt. Like that scene was shot beautifully. Like this movie, I think was beautiful. I loved it. Like,
for sure.
The New York that we saw, like it was just like in the streets, so to speak. Like we're going under the scaffolding. Like it's a very specific part of New York. You get a very good feeling for where you are. I like the stadium scene, like the whole walk through, like the walk and talk where she's like, they're trying to sober her up and then she freaks out. One, tiny little fun fact, if you guys have any, I mean, feel free, but I love that that's the same dressing room that she freaks out in Black Swan. So I thought that was kind of like a cool connection between these two movies and, obviously Natalie Portman, but I think it was shot beautifully. I think the rewatch worked really well for me. I'd recommend it, but I'd probably give people a heads up to not go in completely blind. If I was to, to talk to anybody about it, but I'd love to hear any like final thoughts you guys have on the movies, any fun facts, anything like that you want to share before we get into our Rushmore.
I'm going to tie these two thoughts together because I never answered the question about my favorite parts.
Oh,
and
right,
I think no, it's okay. My favorite part, honestly, and it's not because I thought it was good, but it made me laugh, and I didn't laugh at it because I was making fun of it, but it just was silly. But when right before she goes on stage and she gives her pep talk, and then she says, "Who's the baddest bitch in the room?" You are. Like, I just loved it. I was like, okay, fuck yeah.
Who's the baddest bitch in the room?
You are!
Who's the sickest band on the planet?
We are! Who makes this all possible? We do! Are we gonna be good? No! Are we gonna be great? No! Are we gonna be amazing? No! Then what are we gonna be? Phenomenal! Yeah! Phenomenal! Come on! Take it higher! And higher! And higher! And higher! And higher! And higher! And higher! Phenomenal! Great!
Let's do this.
go.
Like, she's in the zone. And she is a bad bitch, Natalie Portman, because she shot her part in only 10 days. I just happened to see in trivia. That's pretty crazy that she was able to, because one thing I liked about it, like I said earlier, was she really, like, she goes for it for this character. Like, she's really giving it her all. Like, the parts where she's crying and breaking down and her manic moments is like, okay, she's really feeling this, and this is really happening. And the fact that she, was able to flesh that all out in 10 days, maybe it shows a little bit because I think all of us had trouble, like, for as much as she was into it and as well as she did, or as good as she did, it was still kind of like, maybe it seemed a little bit much, or maybe a little unrefined. It seemed a little raw, but still, the fact that she was able to do all that in 10 days is pretty impressive. So she is the baddest bitch in the room.
Her husband choreographed the dancing, which I think is weird.
Yeah, because
he's a dancer. Really, I don't really know.
Yeah, he is. I like I said, I listened to a podcast recently. Can't remember which one, and she talks about how he's a phenomenal choreographer. But I'm like, I didn't love any of the choreography here. So, but I mean, I guess they only had 10 days, so I'll give Benjamin a pass. That's his name, not you, Ben.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Matt was talking about with like the relationship with her sister. Those were all of my favorite parts. I thought it was really interesting because I'm the oldest sister, and I think there are a lot of like maternal qualities that go along with that. So it was really interesting to see that play out in such like a heightened environment and like a school shooting, and then overnight like pop stardom, and then obviously she's also a child herself, and so to see her kind of fail her sister in like taking care of her through all this, like how do you navigate that anyway? But to try to make up for those failures with her niece, like I just think that was like a really, really interesting dynamic, and the best part of the movie probably for me. The shootings the school shooting definitely wasn't necessary. We didn't need to see it because, like you said, we've experienced it. But I think that's kind of what the point was, is like this quality, like this idea that some people have to gain this notoriety are crazy and willing to do whatever it takes to get that. And that's kind of unique to our generation. Like they mentioned, she was born in 1986, and that's like right around our ages. They hit on 9/11 randomly. But I think it's maybe just as like a touchstone of time, just like, this is where she was. She lost her virginity the night before 9/11. And then, so I think it's like an interesting sort of culmination of things for her when they return to her hometown for this like rebirth concert. Like there's a lot on the line for that. Then, you know, she finds out there's another shooting and she's somehow linked to that. Her daughter's lost her virginity, so she's like thinking about her own experience. So like there's like every trigger she probably has been like triggered. Yeah. And so it makes sense that she would have like this huge meltdown. And it like earlier, like I was just like, why are we just seeing these vignettes? Like they're broken up into acts, but it still felt like just small montage vignettes. And so I think it was like really, just while you guys have been talking, it's like, oh, okay, these are these enormous like events in her life. Sorry, I'm rambling now, but it's just like, it makes more sense to me now why he chose to show those snapshots the way that he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, that makes sense. And it definitely helps like contextualize the actual viewing of the shootings to me when you put it that way. But I think I'll die on this hill. I didn't even see it.
I'm not trying to change your mind.
No, I know.
You know, it was just...
But you did that is a compelling argument. And it actually is like, okay, that does sort of make sense, because if we're
putting this on a poll.
Yeah. If the point of this movie is like, you know, what would drive a person to break down and then to watch them be reborn or redeem themselves, then yeah, like probably unfortunately need to see all that shit. But I still don't know that that's the point of the movie. So I don't know.
Yeah. Absolutely fair.
Just to say.
Matt, how about you? You want to close this out? Any last thoughts on the movie or anything else you want to add in?
Well, I guess I will leave the way I started, talking about accents. While I was especially judgy on Natalie Portman admittedly unfairly, I was not judgy at all about Jude Law's accent.
Oh, yeah.
No.
And
trust me. You trust me?
Yeah.
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 That's good, because I've been doing this a long time, and I can understand if it's a little overwhelming, but you have to trust the process. The process works. That's why you and your parents chose me to guide you through this strange and unpredictable new process.
And I, like, again, probably unfairly, because I don't even know how great of a job he did, but just because it's Jude Law, I was sold.
Yeah, I'll be honest.
But I'm a Natalie Portman fan, so I should have given her that same pass, but I didn't.
Yeah. It was weird. Like, I knew it was Jude Law the whole time, but I'm like, is that Jude Law? Like, I don't know. Just because he felt, you know, he's a great actor, and he felt like that guy. Like, that guy seemed very real to me. And so the whole time I'm just like, I know that's Jude Law, but like, I don't know. Is it?
Is it? Yeah.
Sleazeball with a heart of gold. Kind of just like an all-American accent, not even really one area.
I love it. I'm sure, you know, someday we will get to our J-Law Rushmore. But for this episode, we are going to dig into Natalie Portman. So to kick off our Rushmore Portman, let's go to our guest, our wonderful guest. Would you like to tell us your 4 movies that fall on your Natalie Portman Rushmore mountain?
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
I would love to.
Good, because you have to.
Because you have to. I'm just like signing out right now. I'm out of here.
I think there are 2 we're probably all going to have. A V for Vendetta and A Black Swan. I mean, she won her Oscar. She's amazing.
I watch the way she moves. Imprecise, but effortless. She's not faking it.
Like you said, like she really can dance. So
yeah, the girl can move. She has like control of her body. I don't know if it's. I mean, I'm older than dirt, so I feel like I can say this. I don't know if it's like age and like having not moved in the way that a pop star would move for your entire life, and now you're trying to do it in your 30s. Like, admittedly, that's probably very difficult, but I couldn't buy it this time. Black Swan, however, I did buy.
You bought that on Blu-ray.
Look at the response you got out of the MVP there. Well, you're going for the title.
It's coming for you.
Watch yourself, Ashley.
Oh man.
I was just thinking, like, watching Black Swan, I'm amazed, but like when I was watching Vox Lux, I was like, I could probably do that. I could learn this. Like,
yeah, it's
figure
like
this out. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
And again, she did it all in 10 days, so like,
Yeah.
give her a pass, I suppose.
My third one is a short film. I don't know if those count here, but you guys make the rules, so yeah.
Go for it.
Hotel Chevalier.
I thought about that.
The little sort of short prequel to Darjeeling Limited. She's amazing.
How long have you had this hotel room?
I don't know.
More than a week.
More than a week.
More than a month.
More than a month.
Does it bum you out a little bit that she bums you out that she's kind of sad about that scene because of her bum is out?
Oh, I didn't know.
I don't know if you've heard that story. Yeah, she's been on record saying that she kind of wishes she wouldn't have done that. She sort of felt tricked into it in a way. I can't remember all the details.
Oh, that's not fun.
She wasn't too happy after the fact about the way that scene played out. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is a bit of a bummer.
We might have to fact check this, but yeah, I don't think from what I remember, I don't think she realized she was going to be as exposed as she was.
Mm.
I thought maybe the camera angle was different in her mind or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But we'll fact check that.
I don't even remember her butt being out.
I mean,
is she?
I do.
Well, I mean, I guess that, I don't know, knowing what you're getting into probably is the biggest thing, but she's like a stripper and closer.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Right?
can't remember exactly the details. And honestly, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't actually remember that scene that well. But I just remember reading or hearing something somewhere that she wishes she hadn't done that. So, I don't know.
My fourth spot would be sort of a combination of like Where the Heart Is and that one movie with Susan Sarandon where she plays her daughter. I can't think of what it's called right now. Let me look it up because it's going to bother me. They're just sort of like, well, honestly, Ben coined the term the other night and I got really upset. It's called Anywhere But Here. Susan Sarandon is incredible as always. They're a mother-daughter. It's great. But Ben coined this term the other night, a mom-com. And their movies, like, I definitely did watch with my mom. They're heartwarming. They're silly. They're not that good. But, like, it's just kind of like...
Do the two of you just have, like, running pun conversations in that house? Like, is there like just like a competition, like who's got the best pun currently? Who's got the title?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
We're not trying to make each other mad. We're trying to make the other person just pissed. We don't want them to laugh. It's just like we want
you want them to be mad they didn't.
Like the head shake you got for the Man on Fire. The walk in a thin line. No.
But yeah, that's my Natalie Portman.
Nice.
Rushmore Mountain.
Sweet.
I dig it.
Love it. Matt,
no.
Oh.
Wait, I'm sorry. That's not true. I forgot about Annihilation. That's up there for me too.
Well, barring any last minute movies, let's hear what Matt's got.
All right, I've got V for Vendetta.
Okay.
I can assure you I mean you no harm.
Who are you?
Who? Who is but the form following the function of what, and what I am is a man in a mask.
Well, I can see that.
Of course you can. I'm not questioning your powers of observation. I'm merely remarking upon the paradox of asking a masked man who he is.
Oh, right.
I've got Thor.
Nice.
I would automatically put Thor 3 or Thor 4 on there, but I can't yet.
We'll
It should
revisit
already
this
be on
episode
there.
in 2 years and change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. I threw back to Where the Heart Is. That was the first Natalie Portman movie I saw. My sisters loved it. Hey, I mean, any story about a girl living in a Walmart, I'm all in. Every time. And then I'm a Star Wars guy through and through, and so I'll pick what I perceive as the best of the three, Revenge of the Sith.
I don't believe what I'm hearing. Obi-Wan was right. You've changed.
I don't want to hear any more about Obi-Wan. The Jedi turned against me. Don't you turn against me?
I don't know you anymore. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
Nice.
Would be my
I
fourth.
was wondering if you're going to pick one of those or not. I had one on my list. I wasn't sure.
I like it.
Padme.
Solid.
All right.
All right,
Well,
Fuzz.
I'll take it away. The first one that came to my mind, obviously, well, I guess not obviously, was Black Swan. I've only seen it. I think I've only seen it once, and I don't know. It's always just sort of stuck with me. Like I can't think of Natalie Portman without thinking about Black Swan. So to me, that was sort of like the automatic, first round buy. Like it's got to be on there. I also put V for Vendetta on there. And then going through her IMDb, like I've seen a lot of her stuff and I was surprised. I'm like, but I just didn't like that movie enough to put it on any list. Like the other Bolin girl, like I saw it. It's fine, but it's like, I don't like it. And I couldn't remember a single thing about it if I, didn't know a little bit about the history, and like, Closer, I've seen that once. I don't really remember it. And like, that theme sort of repeats itself throughout her IMDb. But another one that I've only seen once, and I remember loving it in the moment, was Leon, the Professional. And that's obviously where she gets her start.
No.
I'm all right. I'm fine.
One shot, not bad, huh?
That was an interesting experience for me, seeing it at Broovies. That's the only time I've ever seen it. So watching it in that sort of like raucous group setting was pretty cool. And I really liked it. And then I also put Thor on my list. I considered Garden State. And I don't know have you guys seen, speaking of short stories, there's a collection of short stories called Paris Je t'aime. And it's like I think it's like 5 or 6 little short stories about Paris and just like people talking about stories about why they love Paris. And she's apparently in that. And that's why I couldn't put this on my list, because I don't remember her being in it. But there is one specific short story in there that was so sweet. And I just loved it so much and made the whole thing worth watching, about a woman. She's like a postal worker from the United States. She's like a homely Midwest older woman who learns French and then travels to Paris. And it's just like this very sweet, beautiful little short story about this woman's experience, like finding herself in Paris and like living out her dream of going. So I definitely think that's worth a watch. But yeah, Black Swan, V for Vendetta, Leon the Professional, and Thor will be my 4.
I love it. I love it so much that was literally my 4. So I'm going to change mine up a little bit just for diversity's sake here. Leon Professional was my number 1 on there. Like she's so good in that. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Got to go with Black Swan. That movie, she's wonderful in it. And then also like from a filmmaking aspect, watching that, like the way Aronofsky, like
just unbelievable
going around. Yeah. Like in the mirrors and stuff like that. I was like, wait, how are they doing this? Like there's so much that has gone into this. This is crazy to me. That movie, I love that movie so much. I will also throw Thor on there. I thought she was like just a wonderful counterpart to Chris Hemsworth.
Very surprised to hear that's on your list, because I know you're on record as that's your least favorite Marvel movie. Or at least I thought it was.
Thor: Dark World is my least favorite.
Oh, okay.
The second
So bad.
one, yeah, I don't like that one.
We didn't even want to mention it on here. Thanks.
That's what I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna bleep that out so people don't know what movie you just said.
Yeah, I've only ever seen Dark World. It was on like TBS or something one time.
Oh, nice.
And so I like kind of watched it in the background. But
Yeah, it's not my favorite. I mean, the first Thor I think was good. It was interesting. That's Kenneth Branagh. Like, he directed that movie. Hemsworth's like blonde eyebrows are really weird. Like, there's definitely like changes that needed to be made. But I think Natalie Portman brought a lot to that movie, especially because like, we didn't really know Chris Hemsworth at that point. So she and Stellan Skarsgård, I think, were like kind of the two best parts of that movie. So I liked her a lot. I did have V for Vendetta, but I'm going to bump that off and I'm going to bump it for Garden State.
Nice.
I think because like when I think of V for Vendetta, I probably think of V more than I do Natalie Portman. Like I would give it to Hugo Weaving if I had to out of that,
Sure.
you know, those two. But also just for a little diversity, I feel like Garden State is kind of where we see the first ever manic pixie dream girl.
I was just
it's just
say,
like it's this
like,
perfect person who shows up. Like I don't know who doesn't think of that movie whenever they mention the Shins, you know.
What are you listening to?
The Shins. You know them?
No.
You gotta hear this one song. It'll change your life, I swear. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to, you gotta fill out your forms. Conundrum.
There's so much in that movie that she does really well. I left it off because like it's not my favorite of her movies, but I feel like it needs to be brought up at least on the Rushmore discussion. She's really an important part of that movie. I think she does a wonderful job, and really just kind of carries a lot of the weight. Not that Zach Braff wasn't good in it, but you know she's the crux behind I think a lot of the emotion in that movie. So
for sure.
She's kind of that's. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
just
get her off this pod.
I know.
Oh, I feel bad even saying that. I'm sorry.
No, but I just wanted to say that's why I chose her. Like, she's so good in Garden State. Like, she's one of those actresses, like, where if she cries in a scene, like, I'm probably gonna cry.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
So, like, Garden State, I'm thinking of that scene in the airport. Like, I know that movie is kind of, like, whatever, but it hasn't aged well. But, like, that scene, she's incredible. She's so good.
Yeah, she's great in that movie.
Yeah, I probably would have put Garden State a little bit higher. I'd only seen it the once, but it definitely cemented Natalie as an all-timer on my Crushmore Mountain because of that manic pixie dream girl. Mm-hmm. And it makes me kind of feel bad because I'm like, it's a character designed for like a young man to fall in love with, right? So it's almost like it's almost like it feels like a dirty trick, or it's just like it's become such a trope and it's kind of a bummer. But I mean, she was the first, and it didn't necessarily, I'm sure it existed before this, but she is like the personification of it. And like,
for sure,
I'm sorry. I like a manic pixie dream girl. What am I supposed to do?
Is this the first we're hearing then that she's officially on the Crushmore?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think Natalie might have started she's the first face we carved.
Was it? Okay. I was like, I remember Andy Kendrick. I didn't remember.
I'm going to move some people over.
Yeah. let's give some stuff over. Yeah, no, I think, these are all great Rushmore. She's got a solid, filmography, and I think we picked some great stuff for her. This was a fun episode. Like I enjoyed talking about this. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Thank you for having me. I had a really fun time.
Yeah, and thanks for expanding our horizons. Like, this is literally the point of this podcast, is to get to find ways to watch new movies and to get input from, the community and people like you. So like it's truly invaluable, and like this podcast wouldn't exist without, movies like this and input like yours. So thank you very
Without
much.
a doubt.
Thank you.
This was awesome. The MVP. Do you want to let people know where they can find you on Instagram if they want more of your MVP hot takes?
No.
Okay, cool. We'll tag her in there so you guys can find her. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast. Everyone, thank you for listening and participating in everything. I mean, we say it every week, but we're super grateful for everyone that participates in the podcast with us. I think we've created a pretty fun little community here. I'm always looking forward to the next watch party. We'll see if Ashley can retain her title on the next one, which should be coming up soon, I guess, by the time this comes out. So that'll be exciting. But yeah, you can find us, at 3filmspod.com, and from there you can find anything you want. Our Instagram, our Patreon. We've got some people sign up, which has been super fun. So if you're into that, please do. Like and subscribe. We'd love to get a review from you. And thank you again, everybody, for participating and following along with us. And we will see you next week.
See ya.
We're sitting here today with film star Natalie Portman.
Hello.
So, Natalie, what's a day in the life of Natalie Portman like?
Do you really want to know?
Please, tell us.
I don't sleep, mother off that yak and that Durban, doing 120, getting hit while I'm swerving.
Damn, Natalie, you a crazy chick.
You shut the up and suck my I'm busting dudes' mouths like gushers, mother. Roll up on NBC, inspect the out Jeff Zucker.
What you want, Natalie?
To drink and fight.
What you need, Natalie?
To all night. Don't test me when I'm crazy off that airplane glue. Put my foot down your throat till you're in my shoe. Leave you screaming. Pay for my dry cleaning. Man, it's my name that he's screaming.
I'm sorry, Natalie. Are we to believe you condone driving while intoxicated?
I never said I was a role model.
But what about the kids that look up to you? Do you have a message for them?